Hello, welcome. This is PaperStream 7.0. It's July 15th, 2023. And in this stream, it's going to be an overview of 2.5 publications. And the first publication and a half is the Innovator's Digital Playbook, which is work with Monica Kang, RJ Corday, and myself. And the half is the worksheets associated with the Innovator's Digital Playbook. And this is really hands-on guide with some information on working together, collaborating online. And then the second part of the stream is going to be giving an overview of a paper that was some of the enabling work for the Innovator's Digital Playbook. And that's going to go into more detail on the Innovator's Catechism, which was earlier work written with RJ Corday, myself, and Professor Stephen Phelan. So, hope this is useful. Hope that the beginning and the choice of the playbook as first will help ground and justify some of the decisions and some of the pieces that are more technical or more theoretical are going to come in the second half, talking more about the paper that gave rise to the Innovator's Catechism, which is discussed in the Innovator's Digital Playbook. So it's just a first overview for those who would like to see and hear, not always or only just read. All right, so first to the Innovator's Digital Playbook. This was a collaborative work with Monica H. Kang, RJ, and myself. It was published on 11/5/2021, and it's a Creative Commons licensed work. Also, as hopefully will become clear, there's a lot of original artwork and layout design that was performed by Innovators Box Studios and the artist with the name written here. So it was published as a book with an ISBN, and it has a website, innovatorsdigitalplaybook.com. And in general, I frequently collaborate with RJ and continue to. However, it was really an honor and a great experience to work with Monica and to be able to bring our perspectives together. So I'll just read Monica's background. Monica H. Kang loves holding creative safe rooms where everyone feels heard. As the founder and CEO of Innovators Box and the author of Rethink Creativity, she's eager to help more people enjoy creating safe rooms in which to collaborate and connect, even if it's only online. She wants everyone to feel that they can show up as who they are and hopes this document will give readers further insight into gaining self-esteem via collaboration. Personally, I'm here and won't go into more detail on my own channel. And RJ is a researcher interested in collective sense-making. After spending years contributing to and facilitating a variety of remote working groups, committees, and teams, he has shifted his focus to how emergent online teams and communities share information, stay aligned, and achieve their goals reliably. So, there's a table of contents provided that's using a color code to kind of mark off different sections. And they're as follows. First was the playbook and author information above. There will be a table of contents page, which is what we're on right now. In the introduction section, subsections are who do we hope to help and why reskill now. Section 1 and 2 were really led by Monica, and the sections in those two are mindset and approach when collaborating, trust and remote teams, team expectations and communication, participation, accessibility, inclusion, and innovation. And then 2, igniting innovation as a group, during the workflow, during the meetings, and asynchronous collaboration. And then the part that RJ and I took the lead on, that the second part of this stream is going to be some more background on, is the Innovator's Catechism. And there we'll discuss what is a catechism, what are the advantages of using the Innovator's Catechism, and how to use the Innovator's Catechism. Then, the Innovator's Catechism is presented in a stage-by-stage fashion. There's 3 stages or phases: the ideation phase, the curation phase, and the pitch phase. And then the Innovator's Catechism is presented not stage by stage, but section by section. And those sections are header, situation, mission, potential avenues of approach, milestones, costs and benefits, admin, logistics, and signal. Then there's a short conclusion and appendix. And The work's Creative Commons. It's freely available. This is just going to be an overview to read basically the first sentence from some of the paragraphs, because it's all here if you want to pause the video or if you want to go and download the document itself. So I'll just try to give a really fast overview just informally. So hopefully the full words shine through when you really read through it and think about it and go beyond it. So first, the introduction section begins with the question, how can we work better together online? Which I think was true before 2020, and it is true today, where I am in July 2023. And that was really the question and the curiosity that connected RJ and I with Monica and gave rise to this entire work, which we hope can be meaningful in some way to you, whether there's parts that seem really simple or unrelated or related. If it's helping you work better together online, then I think we'll have done what we set out to do. We began with contextualization of the ongoing pandemic during the time of the writing. We asked, why would you want to hone the ability to facilitate and collaborate online today? There's some writing here, but this is the coefficient or the leverage point in working online, is literally working online. And so being able to connect some of the more abstract things, not just our values, but also more formal ways of thinking about teamwork, and being able to connect that with the human and the experienced side, that is really where we tried to get to with this work. We aimed here to provide tools that you need to scaffold both yourself and your team by answering vital questions. How can I collaborate with my team to innovate online? Why does this feel so hard? How can I rapidly build trust while collaborating with new colleagues on a group project? What are key elements that should exist before, during, and after every effective team meeting? How do we have integrated communications without having tasks fall between the cracks? How do we facilitate projects and meetings to foster effective, inclusive conversations? And the key across all these questions is to realize how every meeting and conversation about project scope is an opportunity to connect and clarify with yourself and your team. In this document, we want to share how you can do that no matter where you work or what kind of project you find yourself involved in. Who do we hope to help? While this playbook could be used by anyone, we hope to particularly support early and mid-career professionals who are looking to stay ahead of the curve. A few other groups and situations mentioned, and facilitators and project managers who are guiding teams online. We hope this manual will help you rethink how you foster trust when team building online. So however it provokes or prompts you to do so, that's great. In the section, Reskill, why reskill now? We talked about the possible benefits across so many different areas and ways of increasing our skill in what we do online. And that motivates section 1. Mindset and approach when collaborating. Section 1 begins with the topic of trust and remote teams and the role that trust plays in teams. And I'm not going to read all the text, but I'll show one of the very beautiful illustrations. Everyone can probably connect to experiences in their own in-person and online life and work where trust made a difference. And communicating trust and situational or conditional trust, networks of trust, human trust in computers, computer trust in humans, all these different things really come together, and that kind of weaves the fabric of the online team. That's what we wanted to explore. So what are some questions that can be used to help whatever that team setting is build trust? These questions can be used in asynchronous settings, a chat forum, or during a synchronous meeting, and they can be revisited throughout a team's process as desired. So a few key points and then resulting questions that come into play. Just some ideas. If you see it differently, or if you see another principle or insight you want to integrate, or you see other questions and or anything else, then great. We just wanted to get a few things down and just take a spoon out of the ocean, share a little bit about how we saw it at that one time, and spark your curiosity and your motivation and commitment to rethinking how you approach work. So with the insight, take the time to get to know each other as humans first. There's a mention of Spark cards, some question cards from Innovator's box, and some questions. What drives you as a person? Why do you like to work on projects like this? What is specifically exciting for you about this project? How is this project helpful for your continued career and journey in life? What are your core values? What movies or music do you like? Include the time to get to know each other's strengths, weaknesses, and commitment contribution approaches. Questions arising from that include, why are you interested in this project? What is your communication style preference and why? What are your strengths and weaknesses with respect to this project? How would you like to contribute to this project and team? What is your availability, commitment, and interest? And what does success look like for you here personally? And these questions are just ways that conversations can begin from even the time of meeting that point towards this kind of constellation of positive virtues and positive patterns for online collaboration, like innovation and inclusion. And so they can be literal conversations with these questions, like, look what I found in a book, just curious about this, or it can be said however it makes sense, and other questions can be brought in. That's really one of the beauties of the question-based approach, is it's a door opening and it allows a lot of flexibility. So it's really flexible to using it and updating it to make a lot of sense in a given team, because every team is different. Take the time to learn about how everyone likes to feel appreciated, understood, and see this project as part of their growth and journey. And questions. How can we respect everyone's type of work or contribution to the team? How would you feel appreciated and valued by the team? Why? How would you like to communicate to the team so they know you care? How will team members know they care for each other? The key is to maintain constant communication while staying open-minded. This is an ongoing journey. Trust is earned, and when built, it is a key foundation that helps us grow and thrive. Team expectations and communications. Some ideas and questions to ask about communication and preferences for cadence or working rhythm when different people are collaborating, especially in a global setting, or sometimes it's volunteer, sometimes it's really critical. Some topics in this area of team expectation and communication are setting norms and communication expectations as a team. Questions arising like, what does success on this project look like to you? What is your preferred way of being in touch and why? When would you prefer not to be interrupted? When is usually a good time to connect? When isn't? What aspects of this project do you feel most confident about? What aspects are you most uncertain about? How comfortable are you with the disagreements and conflicts? How do you like to navigate moments of disagreement and clashing opinions? Why is it important to reach this deadline and deliver? Is there anything else that could help to understand each other's communication style and what we consider our group norm? What is the best way to get in touch with you when something is urgent, and what is your preferred way of getting in touch? Which just now I see is very similar to one prior on the list, but I guess this really goes to show you find something new truly every time. Clarifying group goals and group collaboration intention. Different discussion on how clarifying group goals can help with a volunteer or an assignment project. More on team expectations and communication. Connecting to this clarifying group goals, questions like, why do we want to work together? What's the bigger picture? What would the finished result look like? What would it do? Who is impacted by our finished product and in what way? And how to broaden the conversation from there. What could we gain from working together that we wouldn't if we labored alone? What are we looking forward to learning as we work together? What are things that we can learn and do better by working together? And how can we support one another by working together? After the team goals and preferences are somewhat discussed in the above sections, Clarifying clear roles and responsibilities can catalyze the team's capacity to work effectively together. Questions arising like, how would you like to contribute in terms of skills and frequency? Why? What skills or perspectives do you have that will catalyze this project? What skills or perspectives do you hope that other team members will bring to the table? When can you contribute more or less, and what does your availability look like? How will you signal this to the rest of your team? How do you like to share your ideas? That's this division of labor or task allocation that can really make a team that's built on the foundation above start to get to work. More about roles and responsibilities. Clarify and set clear expectations regarding who is doing what and when. Who is involved in the project? Who will the team report to or deliver the final product to? Who is leading the project? Why are they involved in the project? What are the expectations each individual has in what they hope to accomplish in this project? What roles are needed for this project's success and why? What does success look like for you and your team members? Why? When does this have to be completed? Why is that timeline important? Who sets communication expectations? Who manages the overall project flow and offers support when someone needs help? And some example specific roles and responsibilities to consider. And this could be a team of 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 people. And so that will start a discussion about roles and responsibilities. It really depends on the number of people and how these roles map onto different positions. But questions to consider include, who is the project manager? Who is the translator of different human languages and/or computer code? That's really important for accessibility. Who's overseeing internal and external communications? How are finances being managed, and who is responsible for this? Who is your meeting facilitator? Who is the visionary? Who is organizing the notes and information? Next section, participation, accessibility, inclusion, and innovation. Important topics that affect us on every scale. So how do we take what's important, bring it into insights and ground rules and patterns, and then stimulate discussions in teams that help them rethink and improve their work? Set ground rules and understand what a safe room means. Ask, do I feel safe to express my thoughts, opinions, and disagreements? Can I show up fully as myself, or would I feel like I have to portray a certain image? Listen to understand. Don't listen to speak. In the workflow, meetings, and project process, build an activities space where everyone resolves to listen to understand and actively listen. There may be differences in language ability or technology use within the team, so make it an active practice to note how each team member communicates best, whether that means allowing more space between ideas for someone else to jump in, or checking the chat box to see if someone has a question they want addressed but cannot read aloud. Don't take feedback personally. We're all here to work together. Some discussion on feedback in synchronous and asynchronous settings. Clarify what accessibility and equity mean in the context of your team. Accessibility and equity are built not just from what is visible, but through everyday invisible interactions. Something as simple as an email or video chat access can mean easy access for some participants, while this may present a significant barrier for participation from others in different situations. For example, with low internet access, lack of a smartphone or a computer, desktop or laptop type, or using older hardware, or having unfamiliarity with different technology platforms, or having any other number of hardships or challenges. Taking the time to truly ask and understand what is the best way to work together means understanding what may be easy for one group may not be the best for all until you decide as a group. More discussion. To build online safety, some questions. How are team members feeling safe psychologically? How are team emails, chat threads, and shared documents staying safe from a data security point of view? How is personal information about team members provided? How will the team communicate and regularly check in on their alignment? How will the members of the team stay on task during the meetings and periods of asynchronous work? How will the team choose goals, outcomes, and responsibilities that are achievable for individuals and the project? and some questions to build an inclusive space for global innovation. How are different generations working together, and how can they work together better? How can we be more mindful if we don't speak the same language or share the same culture? What are personal, cultural, and social norms we may not be used to that we can be respectful of? Are the collaboration tools and platforms used accessible to all team members? How can you build trust with a team you have to work with, even in the case you don't like each other initially? How can you bring out everyone's expertise and strengths when their skill set doesn't seem to directly align with the project? As everyone may not be able to attend each meeting or be in the same time zone, how will our synchronous interactions complement our asynchronous work? That was section 1. Now, section 2, igniting innovation as a group. So the first section was some foundational and starting step discussions to have as a team, and step 2 kind of moves from the, key in the correct location to the ignition of the engine, which is really the work itself. And so how can we generate new ideas? How can we capture the ideas we all share within a spirit of improvement and creativity? What can we do to make everyone know that they're able to innovate and create something together as a group that is better than what any of us could do alone? The processes and stages of innovation are diverse, and no product or team will want a one-size-fits-all solution. Indeed, many frameworks and models have been proposed that try to make sense of the process of innovation. For some teams, the insights in the Innovator's catechism, discussed in the next section 3, will be a great tool for operating with more thoughtfulness in the ideation, curation, and pitch phases of the team innovation process. Here in this section, we will walk through more thoughts relating to the continuing innovation cycle beyond simply presenting your idea. Let's consider reinventing, growing, pivoting, and more. What happens after the pitch? What do you do to stay innovated? What do you do to continue rekindling trust as a group? So this section is happening before section 3, and it is because section 2 is going to describe some thoughts, especially from Monica, about innovation in groups that may complement nicely the approach that we then go on to describe in section 3, that will be described more from a research perspective in the second half of the stream. However, section 3 is totally optional. Section 1 and 2 stand on their own as a tool or approach independent stimulus for remote work. Here we see a distinction between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Convergent thinking means to come together, and it is represented by these 5 squares converging towards the center square. In contrast, divergent thinking is epitomized by yes and to all ideas, as well as yes but and no and all other kinds of dialectics and divergence. And here we see 1 square with arrows pointing out to 5 squares. That's also a lot like abductive logic. And it's important that teams understand at the within meeting timescale, or the monthly or the longer timescales, like when and who is diverging and when and who is converging, and is that how we want it to be, and is that playing an effective role in terms of the innovation and the productivity and inclusion. So how can that happen? How can we start to think differently and facilitate that happening? During the workflow. Throughout the collaboration, how is the workflow designed to permit all stakeholders to speak up, engage, and contribute together with ease and thoughtfulness? Some questions to ask. As a facilitator, or as a participant stepping up to be a facilitator, how are participants able to contribute ideas regularly at any point in the workflow? How do others express validation and support for one another? How are the developments of team members contributing specialized skills, e.g. graphic design, programming, being shared with the rest of the team for their information and feedback? What would motivate people to want to share ideas and engage? How have they expressed how they would like to engage? How do we plan for spontaneous interactions via text or audio video? As circumstances evolve, Will we continue online or include in-person or hybrid experiences? How would the latter change how we work, ideate, and collaborate? That's before the meeting, during the workflow. But during the meeting, some questions to ask. What is the meeting cadence and logistics when setting the meetings? How long are the meetings and why? How are the meeting times set? Are meeting times accessible for the time zones and schedules of all team members? Who is facilitating and what does facilitating this meeting entail? Who is sharing the agenda before the meeting? What is the agenda expected to cover and how can all team members suggest items to add? Who is taking notes? How will notes that are taken influence the team's next steps? Who is sending the calendar invite? Who provides the links and resources for the meeting? What is in the calendar invite? Who is sending out emails and checking in on participant status? How do we set boundaries to respect one another's work style differences? During the meetings, how do we design the sessions to be inclusive, interactive, and engaging? Who is facilitating? What does facilitating mean? How comfortable are we with the facilitator's design of an inclusive and interactive room? Who decides what the action items are? How would we ensure that members remain respectful, inclusive, and thoughtful? Would there be breakout sessions or text chats? Is it expected or acceptable to be on video or audio only? What are other expectations on how we engage, contribute, and speak up? What are the cues to honor the safety and sense of inclusion in the room? How do we define clear roles and responsibilities? Who is capturing the meeting notes? Who is facilitating the conversation and keeping track of the time and agenda? Who is checking who is in attendance? Who is engaging in the chat box? Will the chat transcript be saved or used for anything in the future? Who is doing any tech or meeting breakout support? How are these different roles and responsibilities held accountable? How are these roles and responsibilities designed by people who have strengths in these roles? And after the meetings, what happens after the meeting? Who is expected to do what by when? Why is the expectation this way and does everyone understand this? When are you meeting next? What will be discussed and what work is expected to be done by them? Then, who will be in the next meeting? Is everyone clear on what their roles and expectations are for the workflow going forward? Some more points on asynchronous collaboration. Who will be in charge of project communication and team accountability in between meetings? How does each team member like to be motivated? What encourages them to do what they do? What steps might discourage a team member from speaking up or taking proactive steps? How long do certain steps take and what can we do with the steps that take longer or shorter? Where is the central place where we could see how the workflow is going and where things are? Here we see several different fantastical creatures communicating with each other. I guess on a happy team. Another happy team. Now we get to the section on the Innovator's Catechism. Should be section 3. Again, new insights every time a text is really read. In 2020, insights drawn from watching teams form, perform, and produce content, ideas, and tools were used to develop a tool for innovative teams themselves called the Innovator's Catechism, here ICAT, and that's going to be later in the stream a walk through the paper itself. But here's going to be talking through the Innovator's Catechism as it is and how to use it, making it really accessible and just something to be inspired by and take in your own direction, fully open source, just one way that we work together in some contexts. And if it resonates with you, you can pick it up, use it however you want, or you can use something else. And the idea behind the ICAT was to create a scaffolding process for project-based teams that both facilitates the team and nurtures the mindsets necessary for the team to succeed. The ICAT arose from an acknowledgment that project documentation is a necessary part of reliable productivity and innovation, yet is frequently overlooked. The failure to perform project documents from the early moments of collaboration and beyond leads to problems for teams such as having to stop the work they were passionate about to figure out how to communicate the work externally, having trouble onboarding new team members leading to limitations on scaling and growth, as well as inclusion, finding out too late that team members had very different expectations about the purpose, meaning, or practical aspects of the work, finding that they had drifted substantially from the original expectations about the work, and finding that outputs or timelines were thoroughly unpredictable and not in a good way. So what is the Innovator's Catechism? First, what is a catechism? Well, a catechism is a set of questions that, if answered, helps solidify individual and group understanding of a concept, topic, or project. Traditionally, catechisms were used to achieve alignment of theological concepts, and answers were preset, meant to be memorized. However, in modern usage for project management, catechisms instead include questions that one would like to or need to answer before work can begin. Here, a catechism is more like an interactive choose-your-own-adventure rather than a piece of static dogma. It can be versioned, it can be done like code or done like a document online, and it can always be revisioned and updated and versioned and traced. And it's not where the work itself happens, but it represents something like a distilled representation that facilitates onboarding and alignment. A catechism consists of all the questions that you and your team will want to address and be able to communicate about the project. The clean mapping of questions to answers across projects also allows for comparability of those projects and post-mortem analysis. Since we all engage in multiple projects, and some of us are professionally also facilitating multiple projects, being able to learn and compare is really important. Instead of project documentation that often feels like work about work, the ICAT sought to make that project documentation part of the work, indeed part of the fun, and thus part of a process that makes the work more likely to succeed. It is like a list of questions asked before leaving to travel. If the time is taken to answer questions developed by expert travelers, the journey is more likely to be successful, as nothing will be left out in the packing and preparation phase, or at least it's less likely to leave something out given your situation. So it's a question-based approach that's highly generative and versionable. You can plug and play, hot swap out whatever questions you do and don't like. It's all open source. You can fork it. You can reformat it however you want. To make things even easier, the ICAT was built to cooperate with many of the tools innovators already use. The ICAT doesn't set any limitations on which tools the team will use to carry out the work, so feel free to use your own cloud storage, document editor, programming language, or video meeting, and so on. But further, even when it comes to project management structure, the ICAT allows it to be easily converted to popular frameworks such as Lean Canvas, NABC, Needs Approach, Benefits, Competition, and other innovative approaches. The point of the ICAT is to provide an editable template that supports the process of your team while building alignment and a shared understanding among the members. So the next few minutes are going to describe the ICAT, and then again, in the second half of the stream, we'll talk a little bit more about it from like the research side. More discussion about the ICAT. The ICAT has been versioned from its first use out in the wild in 2020. In fact, the ICAT itself is a version of a previous catechism, the Facilitator's Catechism, specifically adapted for innovators in their process. And so that's exactly what we're going to describe in the paper. Here we just summarize that to say, this isn't just in principle that you can version it. We're out there all the time versioning and adapting catechisms, and we encourage other people to do the same. Again, even with radically different composition, question answer based documents are a really beautiful format, and they're really useful too. So what are some advantages of using the Innovator's Catechism? Catechisms address cognitive overload, and thus cognitive security is improved by structuring the team's discussion and making the note-taking easier during crucial stages of team formation, which can otherwise be chaotic or underdocumented. Catechisms encourage teams to get their ideas and shared understandings down in writing early, providing the opportunity to update what has been written as the situation changes during the collaboration. During a conversational meeting, it can be easy to feel a sense of alignment, but without having a written point of reference for what that shared alignment is, the understanding of the project by teammates can diverge or be challenging to communicate internally and externally. Some innovation documents or approaches are framed as only relevant for one stage, such as just brainstorming, pitching, or implementing, but the ICAT helps teams quite broadly across different stages. A team using the ICAT will always be prepared to pitch or communicate their idea by having everyone aligned on the past and present phrasing of various key areas. For example, should an external stakeholder request information on the team's mission or approach, this won't be a cause for worry or emergency meetings. Rather, the team will have already come to a consensus on these vital areas as reflected by the state of their completed and versioned ICAT. The ICAT template covers a broad range of essential questions that innovation teams face at different stages. The ICAT can work with different tools and platforms. It provides an approach for you to work the way you want to work with more clarity, not some other alternative way to work. If you only want to put one sentence into the document and say all of it's going to happen in a notepad at night, then that's fine. If you want to have a lot of information and make it like a link tree and make the catechism something like the kernel of the project, something that's maybe even brought up every meeting or something that's worked on continually, that's also possible. So how do you use the catechism? What is it structurally? So let's talk about how to use it and then the structure. The ICAT can be used by teams from their earliest formation stages through the implementation of strategy and refinement to their communication with external stakeholders to acquire additional resources. And of course, it doesn't end there. It's kind of like a fractal. But we provided just these first 3 widening levels of analysis, and Professor Phelan will give a little more context on that in the paper. So the following pages are going to have the stage-by-stage breakdown, 3 stages: ideation, curation, and pitch, and then architecturally section-by-section breakdown. The best way to learn by doing with the ICAT is to fill one out for yourself or your team. It could be for a fantasy project or it can be for a real project. And if it's easy, then you have that all in your head. And now it's just a good place to have it written too. If it was hard, then ask yourself which of these questions were hard and what does that say about how things are. And there's a template file, there's a GitHub, and other ways to get these catechisms. For each project, start with a fresh ICAT template or some modified version that you use. You can start taking notes right in that ICAT document, even during the first meeting of the team. We've seen this happen many, many times. Even having a catechism from the beginning of the first meeting, if it's set up that way, or pull it out later, it's an amazing opportunity to take some excitement during a live conversation and be like, cool, what you just said sounds like a mission statement. Earlier, I heard some avenues and approach being mentioned. Let's just get that written down. And that can be really exciting. This ensures all insights shared during meetings make it into a written form that can be referred to later. So ICAT stage by stage. The ICAT is unique from other catechisms that are fixed, described above. It expands as the team and its ideas develop. And this also is a little bit of the rationale for why the stages are different and why questions are different in different sections. For example, prioritizing focus on the costs and milestones of a project before brainstorming about potential approaches could do more harm than good. And that goes back to the divergent and convergent thinking above. Converging too early may be suboptimal in some setting, and also converging too late or in the wrong way. So, 3 phases. Ideation phase. This is when teams are forming and aligning definitions of the problem or opportunity they want to address. Second phase. Curation phase. After the team has clearly defined a problem or opportunity and identified several possible innovative approaches of interest, they enter the curation phase. So this is unlike the first section, which was primarily divergent. In this second section, both divergent and convergent thinking are in play. It's kind of a multi-scale problem-solving phase. And the pitch phase, a team enters the pitch phase when it is mature enough to communicate its mission, perspective, approach, and other relevant factors to external stakeholders, with an eye for acquiring the resources necessary to move on to implementation. That could be financial, but also it could be attention or trust or something else. And again, this isn't the end of the team, but this is kind of like a fractal thing. The first time that the team says something out to another external stakeholder, that's really important. And that's where you don't want one of the team members just sharing something that was not worked on according to the team's process, because that can disrupt trust. People can feel like it's going around the team protocol, or that can be found out later through its implications. So here are now, those were the 3 stages. Ideation, divergent thinking. Curation, both convergent and divergent thinking. And then pitch with a fractal convergence. Now, past the 3 sections, past the 3 stages, we can look through the 7 sections of this document. And that's really going to be what this is a document template that then you fill in. And those sections are header, situation, mission, potential avenues of approach, milestones, cost and benefit, administration, logistics, and signal. And so each of these sections is just meant to be what's right for your team. You can delete a section, you can add a section, restructure it. These are just some formats that we use for different projects. The header asks questions such as the project's full name and call sign and different details of the logistics of the starting and the deadline of the project. The situation is like a background and context. The situation section in the earlier phases asks questions like key problems and user segments. And then in the pitch stage, there's the introduction of additional questions, alternatives, and early adopters. And this is getting into a little bit more specificity. And this is aligned with Monica Kang's usage of the early divergence and latter convergence. By adding more questions, versioning questions, and adding questions, we demonstrate the modularity of the catechism format and also provide something that's a living, adaptable document to the team as they evolve, and not asking too many questions too early, which might be just inability to then have the right attention on the right questions at the right time in the right way, or you might have too few questions too late and not have the answers to critical things. The situation can be continued to be returned to and improved. We've seen situations where situations where a well-written situation section became the introduction section of a paper because it gave the background and it motivated what was done in that paper. Next is the mission. The mission section of the ICAT is unique in that it only asks for a single piece of information throughout all stages of team development, and that's the value proposition. Given the situation, in clear terms with no jargon, what is your objective? What value do you provide? And some questions about mission statement. Next section, potential avenues of approach. In the ideation phase, only one question is asked here. Approaches. Given the situation and mission, what are potential avenues of approach? That's when divergent thinking is maximized. That's where hearing everyone's perspective and really taking the time to explore is exciting. And then in the curation stage, when the divergent and convergent thinking are on the table, the avenues of approach is expanded and elaborated by asking questions related to the practical aspects and the operations associated with those possible approaches. Also, questions can be asked about each avenue of approach or policy, like what unique advantage is offered, what are the risks, what is the feasibility, and what channels will be used to introduce your users to the value you intend to provide through that avenue of approach. Next section, milestones. Projects are complex. Day projects are cool, but many projects take months or years, and a lot can change along the way, especially nowadays. And so the milestones section is like a living table or bullet point list that asks, what are the milestones that best indicate progression towards success? When are they expected to be completed by? This can be as simple as a table that has expected completion, actual completion, and the name of the milestone. It could also have a specification of the milestone, and you can make them as small as you want, down to almost the task level, or they can be bigger picture, but it serves as like a real trace of how the team not just came through and made it through milestones, but also expected milestones. And so that builds a lot of skill and reliability and trust, and it helps you like, wow, we were late on this, but we were early on that, and what made us think this then, and I can't believe we did that way back when. These are all the questions that what would be exciting to do then, you can ask in the milestone section, and what metrics are associated with that. Next section, the cost and benefit section. So the cost and benefit section, like the milestone section, is not present in the ideation stage. That's too early. And cost and benefits asks about the costs, benefits, and the big picture. Last section, admin, logistics, and signal. The very last section of the ICAT is like a more detailed version of the header section. It asks questions that are likely easy to answer, simply ensuring that if someone in or out of the team came to the document, they could find out everything they might need to know in order to participate, provide resources, or request more information. And so, in conclusion of this document, thank you for using this guide as part of your innovation journey. Coming together to build something new is incredibly valuable no matter what scale of development that is. Creating something out of nothing is like bringing form and color to an empty canvas. We need more creators, doers, and collaborators like you. Please note that your journey to build your dedication, care, thoughtfulness, and attention to detail will help make a difference in many lives, including your own. As you continue to reflect on how you can build trust, accountability, responsibility, and psychological safety, we hope you are reminded of how fun this journey of learning can be. Indeed. Please continue to refer to this playbook and share it with others who stand to benefit as well. We hope that you can continue to use these tools, incorporate them into your next meetings, and be inspired to rethink collaboration, whether with teams you know or not. And we're here to grow with you as well. If you have suggestions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We hope that this could contribute to many others finding more inclusive, creative ways to collaborate online. We wish you the best of luck and look forward to hearing how what you've learned helps you continue to pave the way to positive, meaningful outcomes. Thank you for creating, reflecting, and reimagining possibilities with us. Then we have an appendix section. So everything's available at innovatorsdigitalplaybook.com, including a contact form. Here are some resources by Innovators Box, Innovation Worksheets, EQ Online Guide, Meeting Hack Guide, Creative Resilience Guide, Rethink Workshop Sheets, and General Innovation Resources, and also the Rethink Facilitation course with Monica Kang. Then we brought together some of our recommended books and readings that were not like citations, but things that we got many important ideas from. Innovator's Catechism, Rethink Creativity, A More Beautiful Question, Steal Like an Artist, Flow, Atomic Habits, Made to Stick, Originals, Dare to Lead, No Hard Feelings, Radical Candor, Visual Collaboration, The Great Preset, Distributed Teams, and Deep Work Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. So we can all put it together, and it'll be awesome when we do, and how we do. So now very briefly, the Innovators Digital Playbook was also published along with a supplement, which was worksheets. So I'm not going to go into much detail on this, but just know it's also by Monica, RJ, and I, also under the Creative Commons and associated with the publication of the digital playbook itself. And it contains many of the similar questions, but with just beautiful layout. So if you like a visual approach to looking at some of these topics, this is going to be a great document for you. It basically maps onto the sections that were in the guide that was just given an overview. So trust and remote teams, team expectations and communication, roles and responsibilities, participation, accessibility, inclusion, and innovation, building psychological safety for the team, igniting innovation as a group, divergent and convergent thinking. Your thoughts on that? During the workflow, some questions to ask. During the meetings, before your meetings, questions to ask. During the meetings, questions to ask. After the meetings, questions to ask. Asynchronous collaboration. Some additional things to say and questions to ask. And section 3, the Innovator's Catechism. Following worksheets divided into the 3 main stages of the ICAT. And so, here's a copyable and fill outable template. You can add different things in, just fill out the ICAT right here. So here's the ideation stage, name of the project in the header, situation, mission, potential avenues of approach, admin, log, and signal or communications. Next page, pitch stage. Finally, curation stage. Notice how the first ideation stage is just 1 page. You can do it like your actual ideation on a different document or a canvas or however you want to. It's just 1 page that helps give the team some coherence. And then it gets expanded and you can add links and everything as you get on through curation. So, what new questions are coming up for you? How would you like to take the team forward? And additional thoughts. All right, so that's the worksheet. Hope that you find that interesting. Now, pretty quickly, I want to give a little more context to the Innovator's Catechism by pointing back to the work that supported the collaboration with Monica, and that's the Innovator's Catechism with RJ, myself, and Professor Stephen Phelan from Fayetteville State University in the Department of Graduate and Professional Studies in Business. So we connected with Stephen after admiring his work and contributions in complex systems science, and thought it was really awesome that he was a professor of business and was thinking about entrepreneurship and innovation and startups in a really unique and complex systems infused way. So after connecting with him, we wanted to adapt what we had done in the Facilitator's Catechism, which is going to be kind of summarized in the beginning of this paper, and expand and elaborate on that Facilitator Catechism template and actually fork that to become the Innovator's Catechism. And that involved changing the structure of the document and the questions asked. It also meant introducing this 3-stage format just described, with the ideation, curation, and pitch, and also connecting it to a bit more of the frameworks that are in use around innovation today, which personally I was not familiar with. So being able to engage with Professor Phelan's expertise was really awesome, and he knows about it and he teaches it. So, abstract. Innovation teams formed in incubators, research accelerators, hackathon weekends, and within organizations need to quickly align on narrative, workflow, and objectives in order to achieve success. Many of these teams disintegrate or fail to perform due to lack of alignment. Operations orders, such as those in use by the military, have demonstrable impact on organizational efficacy and success. This paper summarizes the history, development, and impact of military operations orders, discusses the history and development of their business counterparts, and presents the Innovator's Catechism, a catechism-styled operations order for use by early-stage innovation teams. This operation order is built from the Facilitator's Catechism, an operations order for rapidly formed research teams, with an acknowledgment for the special information requirements present for emergent and early-stage teams that are market-facing. Contents. Introduction. Operations orders. Military operation orders. Impact on organizations. Business operation orders, gray zone operation orders. Innovator's Catechism, discussion, works cited, and appendices. Introduction. An invention is something that is new and potentially useful. An innovation, on the other hand, is an invention where the benefits, financial or otherwise, exceed the costs of developing and executing the idea. Those words written by Professor Phelan very much still resonate with me, because it does an amazing job of separating or delineating or just articulating a little bit more clearly than I've ever seen anywhere else the difference between invention and novelty, with or without utility, and innovation as being a type of invention where the benefits of some type exceed the cost of developing and executing it. So it's kind of like it's a good idea, but with a really broad understanding of good. And so a patent is one measure of invention, not innovation. And for around 400,000 patents each year in the United States for ideas that are new, useful, and non-obvious, 95% of these patents will never be licensed, indicating a systematic failure to create value. Now, traditionally, invention and innovation have been seen as branches of creativity and therefore resistant to formalization, relying instead on sparks of genius or eureka moments. However, this paper is going to begin with the observation that high reliability organizations, or HROs, tend to have the highest level of formalization or structure in terms of carrying out successful projects. And these HROs include air traffic control, emergency services, space travel, and operating rooms where failure is not an option. The military, in particular, has a very structured operational approach that maximizes coordination between subordinate units and minimizes casualties. This approach is known as an operational order, or op-ord. This paper starts by considering whether the structure of an op-ord or similar can be used to increase the reliability of innovation management the way that it is in other HROs. Here's a bit more detail on the role of the catechism. Catechisms were taken out of the op-ord space and into the innovation and research space through Heilmeyer at DARPA. and that's known as the Heilmeier Catechism, which is a short set of questions that teams must be ready to answer. In 2020, we extended the DARPA Heilmeier Catechism by performing some research into military science about op-ords and expanded upon the Heilmeier Catechism specifically into the Facilitator's Catechism, and then modified that into the Innovator's Catechism that we're looking at today. But a little bit back into the past and a little bit recapping the Facilitator's Catechism paper from 2020. Organization is important and organization is operational. So orders or operational orders help coordinate people and non-humans. This has been addressed from a variety of perspectives: industry, organizational psychology, sense-making, active inference, narrative construction, entrepreneurship, and every other kind of way that high reliability organizations have figured out how to get things done in different contexts. Now, often with immense cost or externality, but getting it done nonetheless. One strategy that has been used since at least Roman times, if not before and elsewhere, are the operations orders or op-ords. Military operations orders are traditionally standardized top-down commands, and they are sometimes written in a descriptive fashion. Here's the Israeli op-ord format as of 1988. However, op-ords are not just always declarative, they can also be formatted in terms of questions that the person writing the op-ord then addresses. That's kind of like the template, and that's why the templates that are provided are question-based. However, the responses are usually declarative. And here's a little bit of information about Roman op-ords, discussed more in the Facilitator's Catechism. In the 19th century, the op-ord was radically developed as armies professionalized. In various contexts, as Clausewitz and von Moltke said, war is the realm of uncertainty, and no plan of operations survives the first collision with the main body of the enemy. Op-ords began to reflect the variability of situations by increasing the degrees of freedom and flexibility in last-mile tactical decision-making and sense-making. And so these formats continued to develop. The U.S. Cavalry General Eben Swift established the first instance of a strongly codified field order format for op-ords. So previously, though the armies were professionalized, there was variability in the op-ord format. However, this is a context where the 5-paragraph order was used to have a standardized approach to provision the information necessary to enable subordinates to carry out the operations at hand. The 5-paragraph order was just one of many significant contributions made by Swift. Others included decision-making games and in-field exercises. A lot more interesting stuff here. More information about the Roman and modern op-ord. An example of the military decision-making process. Here's a staged model. So that's going to be resonating with the staged model presented later for the Innovator's Catechism. And each one of those you can think of as having different sections that have to be answering different questions in order to be the right way. We looked across in Figure 3 a wide range of op-ords. So Facilitator's Catechism was the one that we had presented the prior year, but reading backwards through time, Heilmeier Catechism, U.S. Modern, 1988 Soviet, IDF, U.S. Adapted Vietnam, USBN Defend, USBN Attack, U.S. 1940, U.S. World War I, Swift 1897, Roman Century Order, Traditional Field Order. And we ranked items according to the attributes and the counting of how many of these different kinds of pieces of information or question were needing to, were showing up. And so we can see, for example, that traditional field orders on through modern orders don't include milestones. Not that those don't exist or they're not relevant, but just that those don't ask about it. Whereas the Heilmeier Catechism explicitly asks about milestones, as the Facilitator's Catechism inherited from. And so the coloration here shows what is present and what is missing in different catechisms. Another important difference is assumes organizational alignment at issuance. That's a feature of all organizational op boards, but it is not a feature of the Facilitator's catechism. And similarly, there's an assumption of team composition in other op boards, but not in the Facilitator's catechism. Op boards can be used in high reliability organizations, as well as instantaneous remote teams, emergent remote teams in the gray zone, being operated like high reliability organizations. A few different considerations that are pretty fundamental about HROs, especially in the online setting. Explore, exploit. Learn, perform. Top down, bottom up. Communications and control structures. Active inference helps us understand how multi-scale systems simultaneously enact policy while also updating their internal model of how policy decisions are related to future outcomes. Thus, active inference reframes and renavigates some of the trade-offs mentioned above, such as explore, exploit, learn, perform, and top-down versus bottom-up. A lot more to say on that. Won't go much into information here about op boards and active inference. We can talk specifically about business operations orders and what a business needs to do to get it done. And one of the earliest examples here is instructions to the Virginia colony in the future United States of America from the court of King James in 1606. It's shown here. Unlike later military op boards, these instructions were not structured into a standard set of paragraphs. The business world would have to wait until the early 20th century to see some formalization start to arise in its approach to operational instructions. There's some pretty interesting history about early MBAs and about professionalization of business. The 1960s represented a golden age for the strategy industry. Cool. Mintzberg has argued that strategic plans are a form of strategic programming that coordinate the various functions of the organizations once a creative strategy, vision, or direction has been selected. Mintzberg goes on to divide strategic programming into three components: codification, elaboration, and conversion. Codification, converting a broad vision into operational terms. Elaboration, breaking down the objectives into the specific tasks and actions. And conversion, updating the organization's policies and procedures to reflect the new strategic direction. Planning for startups. Startups, like other kinds of teams, can be formally planned or emerged informally in response to factors such as common threats, interests, and opportunities. Forming startups are not just about learning about a sector or skill set, they are also learning about each other as teammates and about the team as a collective entity. Ontologies, narratives, formal documents, and tools can be used as a basis for intervention and a framework to model the process of team forming, storming, norming, and performing. The startup community has not been immune to the fashions and fads of planning in the corporate environment. More detail about Silicon Valley and venture capitalism. Unfortunately, there is very little evidence that having a good business plan improves the performance of a startup. Very interesting claim. Some more information. The growing disenchantment with business plans led to a new movement in the startup community focused around business models rather than business plans. After all, von Moltke's famous dictum, no plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force. Steve Blank paraphrased the statement for the startup community as, no business plan survives first contact with the customer. More information about Blank. Eric Ries, a student of Blank, released the Lean Startup. Around the same time, the first business model canvas was published. This is the original business model canvas divided into 9 categories: revenue streams, cost structure, value prop, customer segments, customer relationships, channels, key activities, key partners, and key resources. Appendix B. Additionally, there are innovation frameworks like Lean Canvas, Appendix C. More information about entrepreneurship, education, and implementation. Osterwalder and Blank developed the Mission Model Canvas, Appendix D. Op boards are primarily about coordination. Innovation coordination is more important in a large organization than a startup. However, even within a startup environment, there's a need to coordinate actions with other stakeholders, particularly investors. Business Model Canvas is not usually prepared for external consumption. Additionally, there can be a tendency to use the canvas as a vision board or incoherent bricolage rather than a strategic springboard. Small typo. But as they say, you really learn something new every time. Recent thinking on innovation models. And so here's some recent thinking that Professor Phelan brought in. Work from blank. DLS methodology, design thinking. Lean startup and Scrum. NABC, needs approach, benefits, and competition. We discuss instantaneous remote teams, IRTs, in the gray zone. The future of business op boards. What is still needed? Some discussion of what would improve different advantages and integrate and synthesize across these different previously discussed frameworks. On the right side is the Facilitator's catechism. In the middle is the mapping with the lean canvas. So here we just have functional mappings between the sections of the lean canvas and a bit of a foreshadowing of a representation about how you can remix or re-render the questions related to these topics in the middle. You can map them into natural language, into the Facilitator's catechism, but you could also map them into natural language or visualization or other formats like the lean canvas. And that's one of the advantages of the question-based method as well. There are several areas in which business op boards can be improved. Again, this is just our team's perspective. You may see different, or you may disagree. There's no reason that agile technique can't be applied to the design and testing phase, not just the build phase. Versioning systems could help emergent teams build documentation from the start of the collaboration. Advanced rendering capacities for reconfigurable visualization could reduce work about work by facilitating rapid preparation of pitch documents, slides, and canvas models. Different renderings could be useful. When op boards are ill-defined or contain spurious abstract questions, teams can spend too much time on one thing or not enough time on another thing. Complexity motivates new approaches to entrepreneurship. And while get good feedback and do the most informative experiment is often given as qualitative advice, this principle is not formally integrated into the business op board. And so here's the Integrator's Catechism. Here's about situations that constrain or where we imagine the Integrator's Catechism would be useful. Here are the header and other sections of the op board itself, Innovator's Catechism. It's kind of a bottom-up. And here's a visualization of it. So, on the columns, we see the three stages: ideation, curation, and pitch. And then on the rows are the different sections: situation, mission, avenues of approach, milestones, cost and benefit, admin, launch signal. And so the ideation phase, it's just key problems, user segments, value proposition, approach, and admin. Then in the curation stage, you add in cost, milestones, and resources. And then in the pitch stage, you add these other sections in. Stages, slightly different timeline or archetypal model with more, just again, showing how different ways of taking a staged approach to thinking about startups and teams can help support, and not overly constrain or dampen the enthusiasm and the creativity. More details on the stages. Figure 7, all questions in the Innovator's Catechism. This is showing how many of the terms that were used in the questions map onto key features in other frameworks. So here's the Innovator's Catechism rendering into different formats. And this is flexible. You can bring in more questions and use language models. Here's an example cross-rendering from the Innovator's Catechism on the left to the NABC on the right. And a discussion. A few advantages of the Innovator's Catechism. First, it's a catechism format with so many benefits to it. Second, narrative development. This allows internal and external narratives. Versioning. Documentation. Really important for assigning ownership, assessing reproducibility, and performing statistical analysis. And modularity. Were some of these concepts put in use, and where they're put in use, We see a possibility to increase the efficacy of early stage innovation teams in a lot of different ways. And here's the work cited. And here's Appendix A, business plan outline. Appendix B, the business model canvas. Appendix C, the lean canvas. Appendix D, mission model canvas. Appendix E, Innovator's Catechism to Lean Canvas Rendering, adapted. Appendix F, Innovator's Catechism to Collaborative Innovation Canvas Rendering, adapted. Appendix G, Innovator's Catechism to Kawasaki's Only 10 Slides Framework. Appendix H, Innovator's Catechism Ideation Format Phase. Curation phase and pitch phase. github.com/cogsec/innovators catechism for the updated versions. All right, well, hopefully this has been an interesting stream for you. I like discussing this work. It's really important and interesting work. I hope you find it similarly or differently. And so, good luck with all of your work. Hope that whether you use these exact tools that we've kind of laid a path through, or some of the bigger topics that were mentioned inspire you, or you take what you've paid attention to and go a totally different way, that would be all good. Again, best of luck with your works, and talk to you later.